Hello everyone. Today I would like to talk about a counter tactic. More precisely, what you can do against an opponent that, systematically or not, attacks into your attack. So how does an attack into attack, in French attaque dans l'attaque, look like? Your opponent waits until you start your preparation for a strike and instantly starts his own preparation himself. If both of you carry on with your strikes and hit, this often leads to a situation where both fighters hit at the same time, or if one of you strikes faster than the other, either you or your opponent hit slightly before the other. Note that the attack into attack situation is different from a situation where both fighters start their preparation at the same time and what would be called simultané by the arbitre, or might be not stopped at all. Also note that these two situations look very similar and are really hard to distinguish for spectators, but also for the arbitre and the judges. In principle, the attack into attack and the counter actions work for any of the 6 strikes. In this video, we will concentrate on the lateral exterior for simplicity reasons and because it is the strike where it is mostly used. Let us now have a short look at the rules for this action. If both of you carry on with your strike and hit, it should be you who should get a point, and your opponent should be stopped by the arbitre for défaut d'anticipation, or sometimes even directly as attaque dans l'attaque. As you were the one who started his attack first, you have the initiative. This does also hold if your opponent's attack is carried out faster than yours and his strike is the first one to reach its target. However, if your opponent carries out his strike faster than you and manages to parry your initial strike, he is the one to get the point and there is no violation of any rules and no one will be stopped. You had the initiative as you started your strike first, but this is only of importance if your strike reaches its target. The same applies when your opponent evades your strike with an esquive, as again your strike did not find a target. In the case that you hit your opponent, but your strike is invalid, for example it was too close, on an invalid target area, or carried out with the wrong technique, you should not get a point, but your opponent should still be stopped by the arbitre for a défaut d'anticipation. You should not be stopped for the invalid technique, because tactical faults are weighted more heavily than technical faults. If you stop your strike midway, as it can often be seen for unexperienced fighters who get surprised by their opponent attacking into their attack, your opponent will get the point if he hits you and there are no rules violated. You had the initiative, but gave it up when you abandoned your strike. However, if you manage to hit your opponent fast enough and are able to parry or esquive the attack of your opponent afterwards, you will get the point. As your opponent's attack into attack was intercepted by you and thus not carried out fully, no rules are violated. So what can you do against an opponent that deliberately, or maybe even systematically, attacks into your attack? Well, if you remember what we said about the rules, you might decide to just carry out your strike to hit, as the rule violation is at your opponent's side. But this is not necessarily a good idea, as your opponent might manage to prevent you from hitting with a parry or esquive. But also if this is not the case and you manage to get your hit, as mentioned earlier, the situation is very difficult to understand for the judges and the arbitre. As both fighters are hitting at about the same time, it is very hard to decipher who should get the point, and in doubt the judges often do not give any points to any of the fighters. Also, for the arbitre, the situation might not be clearly identifiable and he might not stop at all, call a simultané, or even assign the rule violation to the wrong fighter. But there are other possibilities. One possibility is to parry your opponent's strikes after hitting the target yourself. For this, you have to carry out your own strike very fast and pull your arm back for your parry right after target contact. One pitfall of this solution is that the moment of target contact, where your arm is completely stretched out, and the moment of pulling back your arm, where it bends, are so close to each other that again these two moments are hard to separate for the eye. Thus it sometimes happens that the arbitre stops you for insufficient technique, a non-stretched arm, or that the judges do not give you the point. Instead of a parry, you can also dodge your opponent's strike, but this is normally more difficult than a parry. In short, you can work with an evading action directly after your own strike and hit. You can also work with an action before your hit. For this, if you start your strike, you should be prepared to be able to abandon it as soon as you see your opponent act and direct your action into a parry or a skeeve and execute a riposte subsequently. This way, you can turn the situation around, and instead of being the acting fighter, you can provoke an action from your opponent and take the reacting, the riposting role. Your intention then is not to score with the first and initial strike, but with the second one, the riposte. You can even take a step further, and instead of carrying out the first strike and abandon it, you can carry out a feint in the first place. While the strike abandoning tactic is more applicable against opponents that only attack into your attack from time to time during a round, the feinting tactic is more suitable against those who act more systematically and also when they are easily triggered by already small feinting movements. Additionally, to all the presented solutions, you can gain yourself more time for your action if you move sideways with the direction of your opponent's strike. That would, for example, be moving to the right for your opponent's right-handed lateral exterior or to the left for a lateral croisé. Your opponent will probably draw his strike along in your direction, so you will still have to parry or skeeve, but it will cost them time. You can move sideways during your strike or, to gain even more time, already during your armée. The possibilities we have shown in this video do not only work as single actions, but of course also as an entry for a chain of strikes or an exchange. But remember that sometimes single actions make it more clear and easy for the judges to decide who scored, especially if the initial situation is already chaotic. These were some counter tactics against opponents who attack into your attack. Please let us know if you have questions or comments.